Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to look at two session types you can use on the way back from illness or injury. Now number one, we're going to look at some pyramid sessions. These are a fantastic way to ease yourself back into running, and they allow you to hit your peak speed at the middle of the session when you're warmed up, but you're also relatively fresh and going to be running well. Now, assuming you're coming back from injury, you're going to be making sure that your body's warmed up and it's actually moving really, really well before we hit those fastest paces, which are inevitably going to be slightly more risky. There are some downsides potentially to pyramids, which we're going to come on managing those in a few minutes' time. But for starters, we just want to build up those paces. So you might start at your easy run pace for a couple of miles, then take on 1 mile repetitions where you build up gradually each repetition, and then come back down. You could do it 3/4 mile, half miles. You could do it based on times. You could do 3 minutes each. The progressions don't necessarily need to be linear. So you could do a 1 mile build up and then do a 7.75 miles and then do a half mile, peaking up here at the speeds as you get quicker. So you can change the paces and also the distances that you run across that. There doesn't have to be a set time, distance, or pace. You can work as you want to and really kind of keep it quite flexible, which is why these work so well. Now, pyramids also don't need to be just a single pyramid. You can double pyramid it. You can even go through trebles, and even the other one you can do is to drop down and not drop down all the way. So you kind of have a nice build up, and you could drop halfway back down and then go into your cool down. That's also another really useful method. Now, you can be really flexible with this, is the great thing about it, but you need to be careful of a couple of things. If you start to get ahead of the pace, don't necessarily just go, well, I've got to pyramid it, it's got to look good on Strava. Don't care. Build up nice and centered. If you get ahead of pace, start to slowly minimize those gaps, reduce those gaps so you stay on pace closely, or you will hold at that pace. So if you've already stepped up and you've gone up to actually step number 3 instead of step number 2, hold at step 3 for the next section as well. So don't just run, well, I've got to keep running quicker and quicker. Effort level, exertion, especially when you're coming back from injury, are really important to manage. Making sure you're not pushing your body too hard. So don't just let yourself get ahead. Don't just get carried away in the session. Now, the second session type that can work really well is a progression run. Progression runs, again, are pretty straightforward, but they don't have to be a single one progression route. So you can also work this really well from an injury perspective to bring it back and then build up again. So progression, pretty straightforward again. You would start with a warm up and then you would build up paces quicker and quicker and quicker across that session. Typically speaking, end at your highest pace before you then go immediately into your cooldown. But you don't necessarily need to. You can again go for a slight progression and then bring it back down, whether you take an easy mile in between or whether you just step back down a bit and then bring it back up again. Now, I know that looks very, very similar to a pyramid, but the point is that we're hitting that same peak and we're working to build and build and build and build a couple of times through that session. Again, I use these a lot in long runs, in particular for people as a more moderate training method. So we use maybe some double or treble progressions throughout their sessions, but the repetition length, the time, the paces are completely up to you and your own ability. Again, very, very flexible. Like I said with the pyramids though, it's important that you don't start getting ahead of yourself. And if you do, you hold that pace. Don't start again stepping up from the first pace to the second speed and then actually you end up at the third level. Don't think you need to push that third level up to what would be the fourth and so on and so on. You can just hold it steady. Keep in mind how your body's going to feel and the fact that you want to come back from an illness or injury. So these two session types are fantastic. Managed well, they can be incredibly productive, still giving you a lot of aerobic work. You don't necessarily need to do them all straightforward either. You can have what we call broken pyramids or what we call broken progressions, where you build it up and then you take maybe a few minutes of slightly easier jogging and then you go to the next pace and you bring it back down and you bring it back up and you bring it back down. That is still a pyramid or progression if that overall structure is there. Really sensible, fantastic way to get you back into running. And again, even in your long run and marathon training, if you're someone like myself who has a higher risk of injury, they can also be really effective there as well, even if you're not actually injured at that time. So pyramids, progressions, broken pyramids, all fantastic ways to get you into your running. Give them a go next time you find yourself injured or come back from injury, which hopefully is a long time from now. But you won't regret giving them a go. Promise you that.